Afternoon, how are you? Well, it's in the 40s. It feels a little cold, but it's comfortable. I've got enough stuff on me. And that's basically the Thomas Jefferson weather report. There's a very slight wind. I know this because I put up one of those inflatable Santas, never having done it before. And I was thinking the whole time, couldn't I, put something else in it so it would just float away? That would be a really good scene. They're not so expensive. So that's pretty much where I am. The car that was my car that was the scene of a deer suicide is back in my possession, and I was sworn in today for another term on the Soil and Water Conservation District. And yesterday I was so engrossed in my cases I couldn't get out until it was very late, so I apologize for being unavailable. But there are new issues today, and the issues go like this. Special Counsel Smith asked the Supreme Court to rule immediately that Trump had no immunity from prosecution. Okay, I did not think that was going to work, but, I'm not sitting in his seat every day. And I was concerned, and am concerned, that it was a little bit like the children in the back of the car saying, "Are we there yet?" And I don't have to live through the tension he does every day, so I can't say how I would react. But my cynicism about the Supreme Court goes like this. There is no way in hell they would do anything other than what is their political bent to pay off and to be consistent with this backward ideology that Trump and his minions have, and as exemplified by, data point, the overthrow of Roe v. Wade. On what planet would you assume that this Supreme Court would do anything to help you revive the republic we were before Trump and others were on the scene? Okay, so he asked them to rule immediately. He said, "Nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to hand that over to the Court of Appeals and leave it to them. And then it'll come to the Supreme Court." Now, this is precisely the strategy that Trump wanted because it maximizes the amount of time spent on the deliberation. And so if the Court of Appeals makes the appropriate decision, which is immunity for this guy, is a frivolous idea. And it's frivolous because we have the Constitution saying if you should be in a position to try to overthrow the government, then by that breach of your oath, you should be barred from holding public office. Hello. Now, there is all sorts of Philadelphia lawyering here trying to say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. That's the way it's normally done." Normally, what is normal about this? Article 14, Section 3, a president who tried to overthrow the government, a president who claimed that there was fraud in the election. Those 60 courts couldn't find any, and none have been found since, in the years since the election. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about people who are actively defrauding the American people and denying to Trump and his minions the reckoning that is long overdue. And we're talking about, I don't know, could this possibly be wrong? What's wrong is we apparently don't have anybody in the constellation that are our elected and governing officials who know how to fight, who show no courage in their position. Give me an example, okay? How about Judge Chutkan? Why did she impose a stay? She believes and said on December 1, the notion of immunity for Trump is frivolous, absolutely frivolous. Now, she said it in a more polite fashion, but that's where she came out. So why, if you believe that, would you then grant a stay on going forward with the trial? Because if you really believe it's frivolous, you should treat it as frivolous and keep going. And then, if you're proven wrong, and the system in my opinion, distorts justice and the notion of reckoning and ignores the Constitution and the facts that we know, okay, then let's deal with that then. There have been commentators who have said, hey, if the Supreme Court rules a certain way, I'm going to accept it. Why? Are we trained animals? If you cannot deny your intellect, you cannot, particularly when your intellect is being applied to facts we all saw, we've all heard, we've read about it. You can't ignore it when the law says the things it does in English. And some commentators have rightly said, for those who try to get around the law in the Constitution by saying, just read the plain meaning of the words. Well, then read Article 14, Section 3, because it's plain. If you try to overthrow our government, having taken an oath to preserve and protect our nation, then you are barred from holding office ever again. That is what the Constitution says. That is what the law dictates. The facts from Trump support that kind of an action. Now, who would want to delay this? Trump? Trump doesn't want an outcome. Trump wants power. He wants to use the power to distort our Constitution, ignore it, to ignore the laws, and to ignore the facts of his misconduct. That's what's going on here. So, what should we do in these circumstances? Oh yeah, play through. But two things should happen. That is, Smith and Company should argue before the Court of Appeals, as they plan to do. But he should now ask the judge, or the judge should on her own motion lift the stay to go forward with the trial. Is that a confrontation? Well, I think it's an assertion of clarity over chaos. I think since there is nothing that says no, go forward with the trial. America, for the land of the free and the home of the brave, shows less freedom and more cowardice in handling this common criminal than almost anything in our entire history. It is astonishing to me that this nation that we care so much about should be so foully represented by the people who don't fight for what they claim is an exalted historical governmental experience, the United States of America. So, where do we go from here? I think more than ever, we try to kick in the ass of the elected representatives and every other person that doesn't remember or ever knew how to fight for anything that was important. And I think that we make sure that everybody votes and stop this nonsense about Biden not being up to it. He's one of the few officials in our government who has any idea why he is fighting and what he is fighting for. There is no person other than Biden who should be the nominee of the Democratic Party. And everybody should get over it, contribute, and support him now. Similarly, when anybody says on the air, oh, Trump had a reasonable opinion there. Yes, that's what it sounds like to you. But do you know the difference between deception and an honorable individual speaking to us? He is not honorable. He is not truthful. He is a manipulator of historic proportions who would end our still young experiment at democracy. So, that's what I got on my mind. Our New Year's resolution is to run Trump down. And, it was a long time ago when Bobby Kennedy got a lift to run for office because Gene McCarthy damaged the sitting president, Johnson, in a primary in New Hampshire. I'm not for Nikki, but she's now getting better numbers in New Hampshire. And it's time that they had disasters, and somebody should sit down with all these Democrats and start talking about messaging, because our message is thin gruel for a country that's fighting for its very existence. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Try to get out tomorrow, and I'll say goodbye to you from my cathedral of trees. Bye-bye.